So we've been on this subject lately of mind expansion. We've discussed all kinds of details. And where we ultimately got to was, we had gotten to the fact that spiritual leaders generally are working their way down up, meaning we live here and you can climb the ladder of spirituality and get somewhere, hopefully. But in Judaism, we have the climb the ladder aspect, but that's not our tradition. Of course, if you become a master of the spiritual realms, if you can climb them, you will become a spiritual leader. You will become a spiritual light. And they will call you Roshi if you're Buddhist, or they'll call you, which is funny, we have a Rosh Yeshiva and they have a Roshi. So meaning you'll climb that ladder and you will become someone who's an accomplished spiritual leader. In Judaism, we have all that stuff, but we also have what's called prophecy, and that's up-down. Prophecy doesn't come from us. Prophecy is coming from above down to us. That's categorically different. I mean, you could put it on a continuum, and I think I will in a little bit, but it doesn't really belong in a continuum, because everything on that continuum is going to be down, up, you growing, climbing, learning Kabbalah, learning mysticism, moving up, purifying yourself towards it, working on yourself, developing yourself, getting to higher levels. But up-down is prophecy, categorically different. This is also what distinguishes us from world religions. World religions are all down-up. Now, some of them aren't anywhere. I mean, some of them are just brainwash, mind clamps. But the ones that are real spirituality, which are many. I mean, there's thousands. You could go tribe to tribe in some jungles, where every jungle has its own incredibly developed mystical tradition that comes with all the rites of passage and the do's and the don'ts and every one of them. And interestingly, all the Aboriginal ones that are really based in true mysticism have everything in common with us, whereas all the ones that are not like that, or they're man-made, they're like a societally developed religion. Society-developed religion usually has almost nothing in common with us on the internal. And let me explain that. Let me develop that a little more. You've got, let's take, for example, Christianity. Christianity was developed exactly after the temple period. So you'll notice they look externally very much like us. Very much like temple Judaism. First of all, you're centrally located. It's got the church is where things happen. In our days, when the temple was standing, you went to the temple 3 times a year. That was the place you go. Our temple had a priesthood. Christianity has a priesthood. There was this whole thing of sacrifice going on in the temple, and you'll notice Christianity is very big on sacrifice. First of all, JC himself's a sacrifice, and then there's other aspects of that involved. But there's also, in one of our offerings was incense offering. So they don't want to spill no blood, or at least they only like to spill Jewish blood, but they don't want to kill animals, but they will light incense and walk around the church with their incense, which of course you guys know how serious we were about incense. I spoke about that the other day. We're seriously serious about incense. And priesthood, centrally located, specific times of the day or year or week or whatever. Then came along synagogue Judaism. For hundreds of years there was synagogue Judaism, and then came along Islam, which is the externals of synagogue Judaism. Multiple prayers a day, no priesthood, every person's a practitioner. You can pray in a phone booth. You don't have to go anywhere to do your prayers. No offerings, no incense, no nothing. It's so the Islamic community is kind of a takeoff on synagogue Judaism. Now, when you go Kabbalistically, which is, what do you say, Kabbalistic is the majority of Jewish life or minority of Jewish life? Kabbalistic. Meaning if you were going to take all the writings in Judaism, would you have more about the logistics of what we do or the Kabbalistic meanings of what we do? Which one's going to have more writings?
Non-Kabbalistic.
You would think non-Kabbalistic, right? Because you say Kabbalistic, she says non-Kabbalistic. It's a machlokes.
Kabbalistic is all like about that, like you.
Right, so it's a very easy answer. I'll give it to you in 1 second. Let's just say that I told you a commandment and a law. So you have to give tzedakah, you have to give to the poor. And of the poor, I'll give you a law that you can't give less than 10% of the money you make after expenses, meaning after taxes. Sorry. You have to give 10% of whatever you get. That was a law, right? Now, I could give you probably a 3-hour class Kabbalistically about tzedakah. Really cool stuff. Like, meaning you're taking the coin is the yud, the coin is the yud, your hand is the hay, your arm is the vav, the other guy's hand is the hay, and it's God's name ultimately. And there's this whole connection and everything about oneness and everything about equality of wealth, which of course Marxists love, and Judaism loves too, but we are not a Marxist financial structure in biblical Judaism. So, but there's truth to it because of tzedakah, the quality that tzedakah creates. That's why the word tzedakah is not charity. Charity means this: give some money to this poor food. The word tzedakah means, what's the word tzedek mean?
Righteous.
It means righteous, do the right thing. It just means do the right thing. This guy maybe hit hard times, or maybe he doesn't have the inner wherewithal to make him living. Well, make sure he's got some food on his table for Shabbos. Like, don't let him really fall. And also the word tzedek is scales. Scales, well, you got more and they got less. Okay, well, you earned that, so enjoy it, but balance a bit. It also lets you know, don't expect government to take care of things. Because when you let, like in the US, like you let government take care of the poor, you wind up with inner city danger. You know, you wind up with Chicago. Well, hell breaks loose. There's areas you just can't go anymore in a lot of cities in the US. And so you see that tzedakah means you be righteous. Don't expect your government to be righteous. You yourself be righteous. You set the scales. You set the scales. Anyway, I just keep going and going. And you imagine I could go for hours on tzedakah. So which one's going to have more writings? The Kabbalistic import or the actual law of how to give tzedakah? There's a lot of laws too. I mean, there's the Rambam brings 10 levels of tzedakah. What's the highest level? Anyone know? Give them a job. Teach them how to make their own living. That's considered tzedakah. Help them learn how to make a living is the highest form of tzedakah. So you understand that. So which one's going to have a lot more writings? Is it 4 o'clock? Am I like? It's 5 or 4. Okay. No, you're making me nervous because I have a tendency to not keep track of time very well. Wow. You know, I just realized that I'm not great at keeping track of time when I teach. But I'm sitting in a new yeshiva in the mornings. I've been learning somewhere else in the mornings, and I've noticed some of the rabbis aren't very good at keeping track of time, and I'm in the class. And I realize as important as what he's saying is, I'm looking at the clock. Like, and some of them are saying really important stuff. So I'm listening, but not like I was before. Now I'm like, like, it's over, Rabbi. You know, where's the Energizer batteries on this guy? You know, I'm gonna pull one out. You know, I got things to do. You know, I have to go somewhere, or it's gonna mush my schedule up later. You know, like, finish, please. So, anyway, when I'm getting a taste of my own medicine, I think maybe it's exactly what I needed to start paying more attention when I teach. Yeah, so which one has more writing? So
If
Kabbalah,
you were to write down Kabbalah, it would definitely have more writing.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
not written down.
it is written down. It's written down there.
Not all of it?
Whatever we know is, like, there's a lot of missing stuff, but whatever's known has been written. And you could fill this room from the floor to the ceiling with the Kabbalah stuff, whereas the rest of the stuff, you know, you'd need bookshelves, but we could fill the entire space in the room with how much is written on every little law. There's not one little law in Judaism, besides if it's offensive. It's just offense to keep you from falling. That's not going to have Kabbalah, but everything else is going to have massive, massive Kabbalistic stuff. Meaning you can click on the most arbitrary looking law and you'll get like incredible secrets. Even the word 10%, like click on the word 10%. How do you say 10%? Ma'aser. Well, what if you move the dot from the sin from ma'aser? What if you move it to the other side? It becomes ma'asher. Well, what's the word asher means rich, right? So you want to get rich? You be a receptacle of money. Like you get money out to the world. Well, what does that do? If you're the kind of person who puts money out, it makes a little bell go off in heaven. And God's like, I got my guy, man. Because think about it. God's problem, he's got to feed everybody. Now, when it comes to ants, he feeds them fruit. And when it comes to anteaters, he feeds them ants. And when it comes to lions, he feeds them anteaters. And meaning that's all God's problem. But we're the ones that he created, where he expects us to take care of each other. Now, really, he's doing it. I mean, he's pulling all the strings. I mean, you ever do anything? He's orchestrating everything. You never did a thing in your life. He lets you pretend for 6 days you do something. That's why Shabbat you're not allowed to do. Because Shabbat's let's stop pretending. That's all Shabbat is. Shabbat's like, can we stop pretending you did anything this week? But he's so kind to us because he like lets us feel like, hey, you did something. It's like raising teenagers. You ever raise a teenager? You got to give them a sense they're independent. I mean, you're paying everything. You know, but you pretend they're like on their own. Now that you're on your own, son, you know, you got to start, you know, whatever. And meanwhile, you're paying for everything with your son on his own. So, anyway, but we pretend they're independent, and God does the same. 6 of the days, 6/7 of the week. And God's like super chill. 6/7 of the week, he's like, yeah, go knock yourself out. Pretend you do something. Now you know why he plays hardball on the one day. You know, like Torah gives pretty heavy penalty on breaking Shabbat. Heavy stuff, man. Way more than you would think. Like a day of rest shouldn't come with a big penalty if you decide, I'm sorry, I don't feel like resting right now. Well, that's too bad. Now you're gonna die. You know? Oh, you don't want to rest? How's the death penalty? Come on, you're like visiting someone's home and they're like, maybe you'd like to rest a little. And you're like, no, I'm good. Their teenager comes out with like a sawed-off shotgun. You'll be resting. You're like, maybe I ought to lay down here. So anyway, but I mean, it's pretty insane. But it all makes sense though when you realize that the whole thing was him letting us pretend. And now he's just like, you know, can we stop playing charades and just be together for 24 hours? Like, that's why I made the world. I made the world so we'd have a relationship. But you're so busy, like, putting your fingerprints all over the world. You're so busy urinating on every lamppost you walk by, trying to make your mark, that you forgot all about me. So why live if you're not living the purpose? I mean, if the purpose was relationship, and you're out, meaning I'm out of this one, man. I'm out. So if you're out, well, why live? You saw last week's Parsha Noah; they were out. And God said, "Okay, well, better get a raincoat, because if you're out, I'm out." Now, of course, then God was out, but he promised he would never be out again. Meaning God, in the flood, God said, well, you're out, I'm out. But he promised he'd never do that again. So now if you're out, you're out. and then you're gone. It's and there's only a few commandments like that, where it's like, it'd be better to die than opt out of the relationship with the puppeteer. God's the puppeteer pulling these strings, and you're like working and riding your mountain bike, or making a living, putting in new light bulbs, or going to the post office. Like, he's like, you want to cut the strings? That's not keeping Shabbat. It's cutting the strings. I got this from here, God. I don't need you. And the craziest thing, all he's asking us to do is overeat, oversleep, and just like wear nice clothes. And what else you got to do on Shabbat? Wear nice clothes, overeat and oversleep. That's basically all he's asking. It's not like he's asking for anything really rough here. It's not like this tall order. Shabbat. Yeah, like just chill out. Just don't do anything for 24 hours. Like, what is the big deal to not do anything? Because what he's really saying is, another way of saying it is, what he's really saying is, I love you. Do you love me too? And we're like, on our smartphone, we're just like, it's almost sundown. You're like, 3, 2, 1. Yes, I do. I love you too. I'll never forget. Oh, great. It would have been good if I kept the last one going for this now. I once got a thrashing from my wife. By the way, if you think being a rabbi, like you're exempt, not at all. You can imagine, this like my son in the back here. He's not literally my son, but he's like my son. That's Yiddy. Yiddy, can you imagine me being exempt from getting thrashed from mommy? It's like, forget about that. So she pulls me over one morning. I mean, literally like a cop. She's like, pull over. And I'm on my way out of the house. And so like, it's Sunday morning. I pull over, sit down at the kitchen table. I'm like, I know I'm in trouble. So I'm like, yeah, what'd I do now? And she's like, my oldest son's a Rummy. He's a serious mountain biker. All my kids are. And so she says, the way you and a Rummy pull up on Friday afternoons, because that's kind of the kid's only day off. Kids study Friday mornings. And he's studying all week. He can't really ride. And so the way the two of you pull up Friday afternoon, covered in mud, full body armor, and you just kind of power slide in front of our door, bring your muddy bikes into our perfectly clean house for Shabbos. And you'd think with like 10 minutes left before sundown, you were going to the shower. But no, you go straight to the fridge, straight to the freezer, you pull out frosty mugs. The two of you pour your craft beers. Rummy's like 11 at the time, by the way. I'm not kidding. You pour your craft beers, you slam your mugs into each other. I mean, it's a miracle you even make a blessing. You pound the entire beer in about a sip. You high five. And then you run to the showers. Time's clicking this whole time. You get out of the showers. You're like literally like making your pace in front of a mirror while counting 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I love you too. And my wife says, the rest of the Jewish world is ready like an hour in advance. Jewish women in Jerusalem light candles 40 minutes in advance. The rest of the world, they light the candles 18 minutes in advance. It's our way of saying we're like excited. It's coming, Like she says, if guests are coming to the house and they're really important to you, you don't finish getting ready the second they walk in the door. You finish getting ready way before, because it's important to you. And she said, can't you guys just, I'm not telling you not to ride, and I'm not telling you not to have a beer, but can't you just finish earlier and show our family that Shabbos is important? The way you've got it set up, it looks like Shabbos prevents you from doing what you love, as opposed to Shabbos being what you love. And that's a Jewish woman. You know what I felt like right there? You ever seen someone take like molten metal, like their metallurgy, and then they stick it into cold water to harden it? That's the way I felt. And that was the last time. Well, there was one exception, but that was the last time, besides the one exception, that we did that. It completely changed the way our family works on Shabbos and the way we bring in Shabbos. The one time we just were so desperate to ride a particular trail out in the desert was the only time we took off late Friday to do it. And it was like, I don't know if you any married men here, you ever done something when your wife didn't want you to do it and everything went wrong? You know what I'm talking about? It's like got the curse of the, meaning it's got the curse of a wife who didn't really bless your endeavors. I've never seen, in all my history, I'm riding 39 years, there was never a time where more technical things went wrong with our bikes than this. And it just got worse and worse. And eventually I'm like, oh, I gotta call home and let them know, like, we're almost at emergency, like medevac, you know, like, because we're gonna be in the desert on Shabbos. And so I go to my phone, and then I'm thinking, whoa, I better turn down the brightness on my phone, because what if I'm with no phone in the desert? Like that really, because then they can't even GPS me to find us. So I turned down the volume, except my finger slipped, and the volume, so I turned down the brightness, and it went all the way down in the middle of our bright desert out there, which means my screen was black, so I couldn't use it anymore. My screen's no longer usable. And I just couldn't find, I was already out of that app, and I was like, I couldn't get back to, the screen's pitch black because of bright sun and the lowest brightness. And so, I mean, it just, every single thing that could have gone wrong went wrong. Now, we had a shuttle waiting for us. I always use my Aish pledges to shuttle me back to the city, you know, from the bottom of the desert, by the Dead Sea. They got nervous. And they were like, what the hell happened to these guys? And they eventually came further west to find us. Like, at least they saw that our trail was going to go through a place called Nabi Musa, which is, how do you call that in English?
Nabi Musa is Moses the prophet.
Moses the prophet, little oasis spot where there's a mosque. And they drove my van right up into the mosque area. Not a good idea, but they don't look Jewish, these two Aish guys. They were without kippahs, they were whatever. Anyway, by the time we got to Nabi Musa, and we're putting our bikes in the Nabi Musa parking lot into the thing, we're still in full body armor. My son, who's like a Mossad agent, my Avrami, he says, you see those Arabs under that palm tree? I'm like, yeah. He says, they all got pockets full of rocks. I've been watching them gather them, and they're holding the hardcore slingshot ones, the hardcore ones with the wrist guards and the... He says, we're about to die. And I'm like, you're kidding. And I said to Paul, one of my Aish guys, I said to Paul, who's an internationally acclaimed magician, who's been on every major talk show, David Letterman, all the big shows. I said, Paul, remember Paul? What, Paul something? Paul, go under that tree. Those Arabs are about to kill us. And go start doing magic for them. We get the bikes inside. The Arabs are just like, whoa. You know, they're like checking out the magic tricks. And then finally, I like pull up next to him with the side door open so we can just jump in. And I'm like, Paul, get in, you know, like, but like, you know, get in, like quiet. And he's like, one more thing. He like pulls out a spoon. He's like bending the spoon. And like Paul loves an audience. So he's like, one more thing. I'm like, not one more thing. Anyway, he bends the spoons. At that point, the Arabs were floored when he saw him bend. Remember him bending spoons and stuff. Anyway, he bends the spoon, and then he just like the Arabs are floored, and he just jumps in, and we're like, and they're just like, we're just like doing like S turns, you know, just to get out of there. Shalom, everybody.